This week on Filthy Hope.
So our worship is not the religious junk that we do, and certainly not as it's been narrowed down to, as Jonty, you said, where worship leaders are effectively the muso leaders.
Yeah.
And singing some songs that give us a vibe, and then we're worshipping God because we're offering praise to God. And often usually in a hyped way. You've got to feel something. Fabulous if you really feel it.
Yeah.
But if you're working yourself up to feeling it, or you need the music to feel close to God, I think, we've missed the point. At least the point of Jesus. We may have got the point of religion.
This podcast is a Uniting Heart and Soul production and was recorded on land that was stolen nearly 250 years ago. This particular episode was recorded on the land occupied by the Barramadigal people, a clan of the Darug Nation. We pay our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and we acknowledge that sovereignty over these lands was never ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. At Filthy Hope, we humbly contribute to the ancient and ongoing traditions of storytelling when we share stories on this podcast. Hello and welcome back to Filthy Hope, a podcast that loves spending time in the grey spaces where Jesus, life and culture intersect. If it's your first time, welcome. My name is Jonty, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Ness.
Hi.
And joining us again is Jon Humphries. How are you?
Filthy Hope. Filthy Hope. Yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah, I think I'm not in trouble at the moment as far as I know, so
Yeah.
I'm well.
That's
ish.
Good. Yeah.
95%
There's always time for that to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's early doors.
Yeah.
That could change.
Do you
This
have
may get me in trouble.
Do you have I'm sorry pro formas
No,
already set up?
I don't care.
No,
Enough
but-
to say sorry.
You're bullshit, John. Yes, you do.
Yeah, I know. I'd say sorry, but I don't need a form because that'd be just like
But you know, sometimes you've got to write a letter, an I'm sorry letter. Have you ever had to do those?
no, maybe an email, maybe, but no. I just get hauled into the principal's office. No, now the deputy principal.
Well, it's like that thing you hear, like,
yeah.
ask for forgiveness, never permission. It's like, or just don't ask for forgiveness either. Like, just, don't really, doesn't matter. Yeah.
I'm just sorry for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
You got to put up with me. Sorry, people. There you go. I'll write you a letter if you want, Ness.
No, I've got.
So for whatever I'm about to say, may the Lord make me truly repentant.
Amen.
Let's kick this thing off with a bit of Event Central. And as we will discover...
Cue the music.
Cue the music. As we'll discover, this Event Central is probably themed towards where this conversation is going to go. So open question, because we kind of realised we all had a similar theme going on that we could all speak to.
So
is
we're
like,
talking about church.
we're talking about church. What I guess let's share some stories about, because we're going to talk about positive ways of transforming worship.
Yeah.
Let's start by laying the groundwork of where this desire comes from.
What
are some,
ticks you off
some
about
annoying
church
bad
services?
worship services?
Yeah.
Shit church.
Shit church.
Yeah. Shit church.
I've got one
Church
that I could
service.
start.
Yeah,
with.
you need to start.
You
Go.
go.
Like,
Go.
and this like sticks out in my mind still. I think I was 14 at the time, as an experience that I carry with me as like the high watermark of how I aspire not to do church. It was a Friday night, and our youth group went out to another youth group. Were having like a big revival evening where there were like, 10 or 12 other youth groups present. You know, mosh pit, lights, loud music, the whole shebang. And for half an hour at the end, when you're thinking, oh, this thing's already going late.
Yeah.
We're already like texting parents, we're still here, we're going to be a while, whatever. Sorry for delaying you, pick up run or whatever. For another half hour after that point, the extended altar call, where you're essentially being bullied into going up because everyone else is
Yeah.
giving your life to Jesus.
Coercion.
Coercion. And I still remember
Peer pressured.
our youth group leader at the time, g'day Hugh, how you doing, was so frustrated and disturbed by this experience that he actually wrote an email of apology to all the parents of the kids that he brought along.
It's good.
And, some listeners who are a part of church circles might go, well, what's wrong with an altar call? We'll get into it, I'm sure, and where some of that toxicity and the manipulation comes in. But that still sticks out to me as like, there's people in the aisles like ushering you forward, like, come on, you want to. It's like, well, no, I've already actually been confirmed and I don't, not wanting to take part in this.
Yeah. Where were you?
I was sort of like 2/3 from the back, 2/3 of the way up to the back. And from the, I remember it, I can't actually remember exactly where it was. I know it was in Chatswood somewhere.
Not a good mosh pit. I was in a mosh pit with the toe rags once.
Oh, I love a good mosh pit.
Yeah, we cracked the actual beam of the church, so we had to sit down because we'd actually cracked the floor. To down to work health and safety, we would have had to evacuate, but it's good.
Yeah.
If you're looking up, the Toe Rags, excellent band. Glam thrash Christian rock.
Hell yeah. What about you guys?
In terms of shit church.
Yeah.
I just want to rebuke the not all altar calls are fucked.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and don't take it like I'm saying all altar calls are fucked. I'm saying this particular
pressury one.
Yeah,
pressury ones. Yeah, manipulative ones.
Yeah, I think the one that I accepted Christ as my saviour was probably in that category. But I think God works in mysterious ways. And
God redeems the church.
Yeah, and I think mine might have been.
I think God writes an email. I think it's called the Bible. Sorry, people.
It's available to download.
Or maybe that's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Anyway, my shit story is Hillsong Slam.
Yeah.
And my eldest...
Not just passing around the plate the second time.
Oh, saw that many times. Yeah. Or who needs a new washing machine? We need to pray for those. Right, Hands up if you need a new washing machine. That's shit church. But here's...
You get a washing machine. You get a washing machine.
Was that?
There's one under all of your chairs.
There was that one. And if you're obviously not faith-filled enough, you're not going to get a washing machine.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know what theology you call that, but anyway.
Someone stole my washing machine. That's how crap I am. Yeah.
It's in Philippians. They talk about the washing machine. Yeah,
it's just shit church, I call it. Anyway, but not all of Hillsong Church was shit church, but this one was a pressure one. I'm there. My daughter's being dedicated because they don't baptise in the church as babies. She's being dedicated. I'm there.
Were you dedicated as a parent?
I was, I had been...
Trick question, sorry people.
I had been just freshly baptised.
Yeah, so you were being very dedicated by dedicating your daughter.
Yeah, totally. So I was in the club and this was the morning, just any other church morning, the group of mums and dads and their babies that were being dedicated, kids like between 3 months and 6 months, right? And...
You get dedication.
Yeah, so I got walked up to the platform at Hills Christian Life Centre at Castle Hill and 1996 and Brian's there, Darlene's there, they're all in situ. It was really lovely. I loved being there. Yeah. Rob only came because I was getting Ginger dedicated. Right. Rob wasn't a Christian. Rob said to me, in no uncertain terms am I getting up on that fucking platform. I'm staying in my seat. I'm going to video this and I don't want anything to do with this thing. We're doing this day because this is important to you for Ginger. Yep, all my family came. Yeah, good husband.
Dedicated.
Yeah, dedicated husband. And Brian, I'm the only woman up there holding a baby. There's all the other mothers and fathers.
Single mother.
I'm the single mother up there. And he says, and where's Ginger's father? And I say, oh, down there. And Brian says, oh, give us what's his name? And I say, it's Rob. And Brian says, 3,000 people, however many in that stadium, come on, Rob. Come on, Rob. Why aren't you up here? Come on, Rob. Come on up. And you know what? I felt embarrassed for Rob in that moment because Rob had made it really clear. It had taken a lot of energy to get Rob even in the space. And then Brian heaped shame and shit on Rob for not getting up. Yep. And Rob just was bold enough and had balls of steel and said in his big American accent, I'm fine. I'm going to video from down here. And no, come on up. And he just wouldn't.
Wouldn't budge.
No, but Rob didn't either.
I'll
And
slay you in the spirit later. Yeah.
do you know what? And isn't it interesting? When Rob had his Jesus encounter in our shower at home about 3 years after that,
Was that a Jesus encounter?
it was a major Jesus encounter. It was. You're just a little sneaky rat today. It was a Jesus encounter, and you know it.
But and I think you've talked about it on a previous, so maybe I'll put a link to for people that want more context.
Good story.
Yeah. No, it's an awesome story.
He said to me, "I'm not going to that church, that Hillsong bullshit." So we went to Dural Baptist instead.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Shit church story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silly behaviour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
What about you? Have you got
Me,
anything off the top of your
other
head?
than people who talk way too long in a sermon, which no one listens to anyway, and if you listen, you forget it anyway because it's clearly not working. Or starts on their second and third sermon after giving you the first sermon because they have actually no idea what they're really talking about. Mine is hype. I hate hype. The worst experience of hype was at a synod youth service, and we were being encouraged to get up, Jenna, stand up, and the song was "I'm a Friend of God." It was this horrible song, "I'm a friend of God, I'm a friend of God," which is probably all right if you're a friend of God. I'm a friend of God, but I didn't want to sing it like that. He calls me friend. It was so inane lyrics, and this idea that we had to get up and get into the energy and go, "No, I don't feel like it," and don't tell me what to feel.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what to think. And this whole that that if you're not feeling it, then there's just something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And go, there is something wrong with me. I'm a bad Christian anyway, and I don't really want to feel your stupid "I'm a friend of God" crap song that wasn't great musically, and it was just inane, What does that mean anyway? If you're a friend of Jesus, go out and do something.
Pull your finger out.
Find a poor person and talk to them and stop making yourself feel good because you're hyped up with some bunch of music.
Yeah, each time you repeat that bridge, that's time you're not spending talking to people.
No one's getting saved.
I remember that.
So that
I was there at that one.
another...
Yeah.
Well, it went way too long, so probably 10 or 15 minutes of wasted time in my life that I'll never get back.
I'm really anxious now about my Sunday message because I'm unpacking Esther on Sunday and it's pages and pages of stuff.
Yeah, well, let's get it out there. If you're going to write it down, just give it to us to read and we can talk about it. If you're going to read it to us, just give it to us and we can do it a lot faster. And get to check back. So when we're ADHD, we can actually go back and go, I missed that point, and check back, and we can take notes and everything. Yeah, that's my point. Okay, but that's a segue to transforming worship.
Play the music, Jonty.
Need a jingle for this new section.
Can you do some really cheesy 70s jingle?
Sure. Yeah.
About
I can already hear it.
Play.
Now.
Please play Sunseed. Jesus is the friend of my heart.
Oh, yeah. Another one.
Jesus is the friend of I like that song because that was taking the mickey.
Absolutely.
Not seriously.
Yeah.
I'm a friend of God.
So
Calls me friend.
the reason I think I'm as passionate as I am, and I think speaking for both of you, you guys are as passionate about this as you are, is because we value worship.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes, I
Yes.
do.
Yes?
No.
No.
Yes. No.
He's
I'm the national advocate for the Uniting Church National Assembly Transforming Worship Circle. Yes, that's my current
role.
volunteer on the side when I'm not being busy doing other things role. So yes, I am, but no, I'm not.
So I'm can't wait to dive into that and explore that. But what I guess, and again, we have lots of non-Christian listeners as well. Maybe we could just really briefly explain what even is worship. What do we mean when we talk about worship?
What do you mean when you say worship, people?
Because it's not always just the youth service 8-minute songs, hands in the air. Like that is when people think of the word worship, often that is the first thing that comes to mind is that
Yes.
particular expression of worship. But I guess open question, what do we mean when we talk about worship?
What do we mean?
Go, John.
No, I'm going to come last because I'm going to say you're all wrong probably. So anyway.
Okay, that's good. I like a good punch up. Well, I'll have a crack.
Yeah, a little
Have a
underarm
crack.
to you, Ness.
You're a trained professional.
Yeah, I think of worship as being all things that we do in the name of God. So I think of worship as not just the Sunday thing that we do.
Right.
So it's everything that happens on a Sunday.
Now I'm looking. Yeah, no, I'm not
Now
going to
you're
say you're wrong.
dick
Yeah, good
now,
answer.
aren't you?
Good answer.
Oh,
No.
really?
I'm not a dick.
Yeah.
Only if you said the wrong thing. Yeah. Anyway.
So everything I do, so my prayer life is an act of worship. My when I care for my body, it's an act of worship. When I love on the stranger, it's worship. It's when I make time and pastorally care for my flock or anybody, it's an act of worship. It's not just singing in church or the sermon or the prayers or the benediction or the big Holy Spirit cross thing at the end. It's all of that and more. It's just, how did I go, John, out of 10?
I'll
Did I
rate
pass?
you later. Yeah.
Yeah, rate me later.
Johnny, what's worship to you?
Gosh.
He's being a school teacher now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Isn't it?
It's my podcast now. I'm
Exactly.
taking over.
John's now the
Pirate
host.
Radio.
Yeah, we're done.
Filthy hope.
It's John's podcast.
Filthy hope. With John Humphries.
Yeah.
No. Go, Jonathan.
I find it really difficult to answer this question because I have been a quote unquote worship leader for most of my adult life, and that's part of why I don't love quote unquote leading worship anymore.
Yeah.
Is I don't actually have a great answer for that question because I've been in so many different spaces where there are so many different expressions of worship. But exactly what you kind of put your finger on is, for me, I find it really, really troubling when worship with a capital W is the thing that you do on Sunday to show everyone how much you love God.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm like, cool, put a camera on them for the rest of the week and then show me what worship is. Like, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Which is a really roundabout way of essentially saying I don't know what worship is other than it's the way that I live in communion with God.
That's a good answer, I reckon.
How'd we go, Jono?
Yeah, that answer is really good.
Yeah. Was his better than mine?
No, pretty much you said the same thing.
Yeah, I just
see,
said
look
what
at
you
us.
said back
Yeah,
then.
which is good. In a different
job,
way.
brother.
Good listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is this understanding that worship is what we do on a Sunday or whatever day you meet as the church. And that's pervasive and I think problematic. You know, if I want to be really provocative, and here I'm going to hell because I'm going, I think actually that's the best thing. If you want to say where's devil in the world, it's this idea that we go to church on Sunday and worship God, and I think that's the best work of the devil that's ever happened. That's been provocative because as far as I've found, I've looked through the Bible, I've yet to find where Jesus or anyone said, I want you to go and meet in a really expensive, slightly outdated or very outdated building and tell me how good I am. That's the understanding of temple worship. And I don't mean temple, some of those high academic Christian brothers and sisters will say, oh, he's referring to the Jewish temple. No, I just mean a place where you go to worship a deity. That is temple worship, where there is the place that deity is or represented, and you have to go there and do something religiously in order to please or appease or do something. I think that's what we understand worship is for most of the church. In the Uniting Church, we've separated these cool ideas of worship, witness and service into, as you said, Jonty, worship with a capital W, witness, which is evangelism and trying to convert people, and service, which is community service to the poor. Yeah. Whereas actually, I think, Ness, you nailed it, and Jonty, it's actually how you respond to God. Yeah. And give worth to God. The original sense, from what I gather, came from some sort of old Englishy Germanic word, worshipe, or something like that, which is the worthship. How do you give worth to God? And that's how we actually live our life well. We go together to service our worship like we service our car. We don't send our car in for service because that's what we have cars for. You know, we need to take it to the garage every week to put petrol in it. That's why we have a car. It's we go to the service station to service the car or put petrol in so that we can drive it. And I think we gather as a community, or at least it says in the Bible, in a place called Hebrews 10, verses 23 to 26, if you want to look it up. But it says we should gather, but to encourage each other towards love and good deeds. I think if God is love, when we live love, we're actually honouring and living God, because it actually says that in the Bible too. So our worship is not the religious junk that we do, and certainly not as it's been narrowed down to, as Jonty, you said, where worship leaders are effectively the muso leaders. And singing some songs that give us a vibe, and then we're worshipping God because we're offering praise to God. And often usually in a hyped way. You've got to feel something. Fabulous if you really feel it. But if you're working yourself up to feeling it, or you need the music to feel close to God, I think, we've missed the point, at least the point of Jesus. We may have got the point of religion, churchianity.
Except that music can be like prayer. I think, I know in my early walk with God that I actually only learnt biblical narrative and verse through Hillsong music. And that was my first encounter with the Bible verses, because I realised that their music actually talked about the narratives and a lot of Psalms and Bible
And that's
verses.
why they were invented.
Beautiful. That's why the songs were invented.
And had stained glass window, the two things.
Yes.
Because people couldn't read the Bible.
They could hear it and see it.
And they couldn't read the Bible.
No, that's exactly
so
right.
they needed some way of getting the message.
I think music...
I'm not saying music's bad.
No, but it can be a conduit into an encounter or a closeness with God. And prayer can too. And reading the Bible can too. And I think what's beautiful is exposing people to all different forms of accessibility through the different things that we do can help people. Certainly.
Can be helpful. Can be helpful. So it services our worship.
Correct.
It can connect us to, but we've made it the temple. We go to our little temples called church buildings. In fact, we even call them churches, which we're the church, not the building. And because God lives in us, that's the hope that we have, the whole Holy Spirit flamey things. There's a great Bible project. If you haven't looked it up on YouTube, they do some great videos. If you want to know more about the Bible, that's the place to go.
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it?
They talk about this whole idea that, when God showed up to Moses, what did he show up as? People.
Burning bush.
And then when he was leading the people out of Egypt, what was it? Big fiery pillar. And at night time it's set above the tent that was supposed to be there. And so, and when Moses got the Ten Commandments, there was fire and lightning up on the mountain. Cloud. But the disciples in the story of Acts getting these tongues of fire that rested on them was symbol that God's left the building. When Jesus died on the cross, the temple curtain tore from top to bottom because it was like a 5-story building. So there's no way that somebody could have done that.
No, not a little tear like out of the spotlight
God
fabric.
has left the building so that not just one person could go in once a year and do the religious-y stuff to make God happy. God's left the building, and of course Jesus breathed on disciples and all that sort of stuff. So it's not just one story, but that just story is helpful to see that we are where God is.
Yeah.
And we are where God lives. And if you want to know God, do God stuff. And God stuff isn't what you do in the church.
So this is an act of worship. And we have this discussion all the time in my church body, because the podcast is an act of worship.
Yeah.
I think about Jonty's home group. That's an act of worship.
Yeah.
You do some of your most formative Jesus worshipy stuff in those encounter groups with your friends and colleagues, don't you?
Oh, yeah,
And
for
you
sure.
grow together, learn together, live together, explore Jesus together. That is worship. And I think it's really powerful. And for anybody to say that these different forms of worship are not as good as the Sunday morning 9 a.m. service with the 3 hymn sandwich, they really need to have a little look at themselves.
But I guess
More,
maybe,
more look at the Bible, because
Yeah.
there's no place that...
show me the verse where it says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And more, the whole pattern, I mean, it's not everywhere, but it's completely inconsistent, right from the prophets. You know, what does God require of us? Not tons of oil or offerings and sacrifices, but to love justice, to act justly, to love with mercy, and to walk humbly with God. And Isaiah and all the other prophets say, you religious stuff is getting up my nose.
Yeah.
God says, I hate it.
Yeah. Stuffy
You
bastards.
if you're not caring about the poor and the widows and the orphans, you don't know me and I don't know you, and all that religious stuff is just complete shite.
Yeah.
Resounding gong.
It's just nonsense, and it's religious nonsense. It's about culture, and culture then shapes our understanding of church, unfortunately.
Yeah, it
so
does.
that we think we connect God through communion, or we think we connect God through the song. But Jesus says, if you want to know me, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit those who are sick, you know. And then later in the Bible it says, if you want to live in God, because God is love, well then those who live in God live in love, and God lives in them when they live in love. And this is love, that we lay down our lives for each other. And if you see someone who doesn't have a bunch of stuff, then and you know, like in material need, and you don't do anything for them, then how can the love of God be in you? Because how can you love the God that you don't see if you can't love the people that you do see? And so our truest worship, and Jesus even said it on the cross, you know, I will glorify the Father by dying on the cross. It was this giving of oneself to other people. That's our true worship. And the other stuff is just help there to pep us up, I think.
So
Because
I
that
love
changes us. If you really want to be changed, you're not likely to be as changed in a church service as in going and meeting somebody who you need to be needy with. Or, and I think the church gets this wrong because we think that we have to do all the doing. But the most profound understanding, transformative understanding, I think for me, of the story of the loving neighbour, which we wrongly call the Good Samaritan. And we keep calling it the Good Samaritan because that implies that every other Samaritan's douchey.
Yeah.
Because the Jewish people at that time
Yeah, that's
thought all
interesting.
the Samaritans were crap.
Yeah.
Because they didn't worship
Right.
in the right place.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And Jesus goes, well, this story of the loving neighbour, because he doesn't say, well, because the guy says to him, well, who is my neighbour that I should love? When Jesus says you should love your neighbour and yourself, because that's how you love God. He said the greatest commandment, the one greatest commandment is this: love God with everything and love your neighbour as yourself.
Yeah.
They are actually the same thing. And then he says this story. Sometimes you need to be the guy who gets beaten up. The guy who gets beaten up gives the good... Ness is dying. Drink some water, woman. I've been talking
Sorry.
too long. Anyway, sometimes we need to be loving by being loved. And our need allows others to use their gifts and talents. Because if everyone was going around feeding the hungry, we need the hungry. And Jesus actually said, blessed are you who mourn, blessed are you who have nothing, blessed are you. The blessing actually sometimes comes from not having and letting others
serve you. That's right.
Because you then bless them by your need.
Correct.
Or our need.
Can I ask you?
If I have no one to care for, then how can I show love to God if I've got no one to love?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, out of all the most transforming worship services that you've done, can you share with us, paint the picture of what if I was to come to a service that you were doing, John, that was transformative in terms of its worship style, can you unpack what that might look like?
No.
What's different? Yes, John, you can.
Because you're asking the wrong question, I think, because we again back to worship in a box.
Yeah.
I happened to encounter God once in a box, but that wasn't, again, anything to do with what was happening because I wasn't listening to the service.
Yeah.
I went out somewhere else, and then when I was on a cliff, I experienced God, and when I was sitting in a fireplace, not listening to the guy rabbiting on at me, I actually met Jesus, who was actually standing in the corner or next to me, not the person who was rabbiting on about faith and discipleship. Not that that's not important. I think, the co-mission of God is to love God with everything and our neighbour as ourselves and go and connect people with God and teach them everything. So, as you said, this is worship because all of life is worship when we're connected with God. But,
I want to tell a story because you're not.
Yeah.
Fuck off! I'm going to tell the story because you're not going to tell it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it goes like this: you and I were both doing ministry together at Ravo.
We were,
and I was a student.
You were,
and I had this idea of, I can't remember what I was going to preach on, but it was one of my first preachy moments.
Yeah.
And I thought it might be good to put you as a starving homeless man.
We were talking about, because you worked at Wesley.
Oh, it was too.
We were talking about homelessness.
Right.
And, that we should actually care for homeless people.
Great.
But not just, so tell the story.
Because
we thought, a lot of our kids at Ravenswood live in a bubble on the North Shore
Very
of
blessed
Sydney.
financially.
Very blessed. One may not have even seen a homeless person, let alone talk to them. So
That's right.
go, how do we make this real?
So we dressed John up, put him in a sleeping bag.
With a wig on?
Wig, the whole thing.
Garbage bags full of pretend
crap all around him and in
on some cardboard
boxes, around him, and put him at the door of the chapel. And I met the children as they were streaming in with all the teachers as well. How many kids? 300 kids?
Yeah, 380, something like that. Yeah,
all coming in for chapel. And there's the homeless man that's rustling in the pile.
Making noise.
So interesting. The children are pointing. The teachers are coming up to me and saying, "Oh, do you think we should do something about that?" And I said, I totally bullshitted. I said, I have alerted the principal and the Rev to know that it's all...
The Rev's onto it.
Yeah, it's all going to be okay.
Or into it. Yeah.
It's going to be all okay.
Yeah.
All the children are watching. It's creating conversation. I'm listening to their conversation about the man there. What do you think his story is? They're asking me, can we help him? They were really empathetic because they'd never seen this stuff before, Jonty. And then we came into church and John started to rustle and move around, and I think the kids shit themselves a little bit, and so did the teachers. And they came in and we closed the door and left the homeless man out there. Mm-hmm. And then John and I'd prepped this, of course. I start the service, and then a few minutes into the service, in walks John.
Making what's going on in here? And everyone...
And they turn around to look.
And then they worked out it was me.
They worked out it was John, but it made the most phenomenal point. you know, we're going to come in, we're going to close the door, we're going to leave him outside. I think I had motioned that I'd offered you a cup of tea and some food and things like that, but you didn't want anything.
No one could tell that was true.
No, that's right.
They're happy to say somebody else had done something.
Yeah.
And we could close the door and get on with our lives.
And it was really interesting because we got to, I believe, do a transformative style of worship in that moment because it illustrated a real need to care for homeless people. And then we segued into Wesley Mission and the food drive that they do. Yeah, it was good.
Which is good, but I think the ultimate is then when we used to take Year 8 to Wesley.
Yeah.
And they would spend a day packing hampers and actually going and meeting homeless people and talking with them. That was the true transformation. Yeah. That's why at Ravenswood and schools like Ravenswood, we have immersion programs where we go and actually live with people. And sometimes we help them, but more often now we go to be in relationship with them and that they can serve us. Yeah. And we can give some resources that we have, but it's not us as the good white rich people or coloured rich people or whoever we are coming and helping the poor, those poor. It's actually going, well, this isn't right, and we're going to connect to relationship, and how can I help you and how can you help me? Because you're actually a human that's not dehumanised because you're poor, but you actually have something that I can learn. And maybe it's compassion. So I think so it's always good to talk about it, but it's better to do it. If you really want to transform
action, isn't it?
Go and meet the people. It wasn't until I went and journeyed and met some people out at Brewarrina, some of the elders, that I've probably got a sense of what it means for Indigenous Australians.
Wow.
And heard their story. It's when you meet the people and you hear all the stories of Jesus went and met Zacchaeus the tax collector, Matthew the tax collector, the woman at the well, the woman. You know, Jesus went and touched them or talked to them or met them.
Hey everyone, just interrupting this episode to briefly talk to you about our live events. If you're a fan of this show and you want to come and hang out with myself and Ness, as well as being the live audience for a taping of the podcast, then you should definitely look at coming along to one of our live events. These events are totally free, and as well as the podcast, there is always live music, food and drink, and just a really great opportunity to hang out with and share stories with all sorts of different people. If you're interested, there is a link to our Eventbrite profile down below where you can see all upcoming events and book your spot to make sure that you don't miss out. We look forward to seeing you at the next live event. That's all, and now back to the episode.
To answer your question though, I did dodge. I think the most transformative worshipy thing that we've done at school was you telling your stories for Christmas. We had Ness and we had some gifts, and then each week Ness would unwrap a gift, and we used the theme of peace, hope, love. And joy, and she told how that worked in her life.
But through the lens of trauma,
abuse, and you know, even just telling your story about, you know, living your rich person life. And working out that wasn't really doing a lot for your soul.
No. Had nice handbags.
Yeah, nice handbags, which is lovely. But then you just need more nice handbags. And we now know we've got great brain science and we've got great psychology services and science now through positive psychology, which isn't about being positive, but looking at what makes us flourish. And people like Professor Martin Seligman and Sonia Lubomirsky and all that have just validated the ancient wisdom that Jesus taught, which is care for other people, and you actually feel well.
Yeah.
Live out your faith, and faith requires us to risk.
Yes.
you're not actually practicing faith until you're in that point where you're completely at that, I don't know, I'm at my limit. I need more to get through this than I have, and I'm going to trust that it'll work out. That's transformative. That's where we grow in faith, because we trust that we've got stuff from God maybe, or just our gifts in ourselves, and if we step out and do something, we make a difference. We feel good, they feel good, everyone feels good. The world's a better place. It's the way the world should work. So transformative, not of us, but transformative of everyone and the world altogether. So the big transformative worship is when we actually just get on with the stuff of doing.
Yeah. And we love a superhero in the church. We love...
Jesus is my superhero.
I mean, he's the ultimate superhero.
Yeah. But again, we missed the point that he doesn't do the superhero stuff.
Well, so like we love this person's such a hero. They've done this for this person. They've done this ministry. They've got that under their belt. When I guess I'm just... you were talking before about, and I had this image of, have you seen the film Inside Out?
Yes.
Yes.
The revelation of Sadness, who in the whole movie is the character of Sadness, is like, oh, no one wants you here. You're just ruining everything. The revelation is that, well, sadness is actually a core part of, like, without sadness, the other things don't have a space to then come in and be in communion with each other. We love a superhero in the church, but really, and we need, like you said, we need spaces for people, and we need to be vulnerable enough to put our hand up and go, I'm actually not a superhero. I'm just doing my best, and be honest when our best isn't, on any particular day, my best isn't as good as it might be on another day.
But God will use it.
Exactly,
and that's the filthy
God will
hope.
use that.
I'm
Always.
a crap, I'm a cruddy mess, but God can use that.
That's
and
right.
There's a great lady, I think I've got her name right, Erna Kim Hackett, who coined this phrase. I think Phil Swain at Taramari showed it first, called Disney Princess Theology, which is we always see ourselves as the hero, never as the villain.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to be a bit villainish, or the one that just needs to be helped.
That's right, because that
allows somebody else to rescue us.
Yes, that's right. That provides the space for someone else to enact their transformed worship. Yeah. And be a part of your life or someone else's life, or whoever is being vulnerable enough to be like, I'm not
and the sucky stuff, the stuff in post-psych that's coming out around post-traumatic growth, that we don't go through crap stuff because it has a purpose. God doesn't give us cancer or cause us to have a miscarriage or, takes people away to heaven. That's just shocking stuff. Disasters aren't God. But like the story of Jesus and the blind man, it's just like, this guy is just blind and we're going to use it for good, because you're all talking about whose fault is it or whether we should or shouldn't help him on this religious day. But Jesus just goes, this person just needs some help. And I've got the power of God because I'm God, and I'm just going to make him see. But actually going to make him work for it too, so he actually has to participate in his own healing, which is a really weird story when you think about it. But sometimes we need to do the work, and we can grow through the bad stuff. God brings good out of it, not God makes us have shitty stuff in our life so that we can grow. We can grow anyway, but if we've got bad stuff, we might as well make good out of it or find good in it, because there's always people who are there caring for us. There are other people who carry us through. There's the filthy hope that's all dirty and dusty, and it's not that I'm going to get better necessarily. My dad died of cancer. I prayed that he would be healed. But what was beautiful was my school said, take the time you need and be with your dad. And we had lovely, beautiful time, even though he was dying. We probably had more real time because I'd wasted my relationship with him and taken it for granted when he was alive, you know.
Yeah, wow.
So the beautiful stuff is the stuff of relationship, you know. And if the universe is anything, it's about that we're all connected in some way. Everything's connected and relates to everything. And when we live in that relationship, and I think our First Nations people say it so beautifully, that this is an ourness, and they lived in their natural state and in harmony, and everything was them. And they were with everything, and that was their family, not just these are my people and this is my stuff and this is my spot. It was as Uncle Bob Randall, bless his soul, now he's gone, but said there's a bigness. A bigness. God is a God of expanding possibilities, that even in the crappiest circumstances, you know, Eddie Jaku, who was famous Australian, just died recently, sadly, but The Happiest Man on Earth is his book. And he went through the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And could still say, I found not despair, didn't deny that it was horrible and awful and the most evil thing that's ever happened in Germany, but there was beauty in relationship.
Yeah.
I know another story of a guy whose dad started or maybe Eddie, I can't get confused, but started a university amongst the prison people.
Yeah.
Said, we got all these people, they're scholars. You know, you're a professor of this and you're a professor of that. Let's start classes. And they had like 40 different courses running with no books and nothing. But that was hope.
Yeah.
That kept them, we will learn. You can't take someone's hope away. And you can't take their meaning. You can damage their body. You can destroy their material life, a bit like the story of Job in the Bible. But you can't take that connectedness and the beauty that can come out of that.
I feel transformed.
Yeah. So if you really want transforming worship, go and live love to other people. And our church services should connect us with God a little, that we can, you know, sorry people, big church word, apostolic. We are the Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Holy meaning set apart for a reason and made special, and everyone's special. Everything's holy. You know, Moses, you're walking on holy ground. It's just a bit of rock up a hill, but everything's holy because God's in everything.
Yeah.
And Catholic with a small c, meaning universal. We are all connected. Stop being in your little tribe and religion club and saying, well, we're better Christians than you because we believe the right things about this. We're more orthodox, which means right glory. And apostolic actually means sent out. And Jesus said, you know, why are you still here? You should be going out and connecting other people with God, not making disciples, which is you need to believe this and you need to follow God in this way and go to church and pray and read your Bible and maybe meditate if you're really a bit out there, but you know. But actually, you know, Richard Rohr, who's a great Catholic priesty type person, talks about contemplation, which isn't about looking at your navel, but actually just being aware of God. And that's the mystics like St. Francis of Assisi that said, go and love.
I love this. I have had this analogy in my head for years and years and years and years and years that church is kind of like a dojo, that you go there to train and to get stronger before you then go out and live your life.
Yeah. Do you want to have an exclusive?
Ooh.
This is an exclusive. Exclusive. Faithnasium. This is my new term. I've seen it around the place, the mathnasium. I thought, well, what is church? Church is a faithnasium.
Oh, I love that.
Being the church, not going to church, being the church. When we live out encourage each other towards love and good deeds, and we go out and do good stuff in the world and make a difference in the world, that's faithnasium. And we gather. It's good to gather Because we need to gather, and
Yeah.
sometimes
Build
we need
each
to
other
connect,
up. Yeah.
sing a song,
Yep.
not because of the vibe, but because it expands our idea that God's actually bigger than what we think it is, and that our hearts need to actually open up, and maybe the emotiveness of the music is enough to crack our hardened hearts open.
Yeah.
And we need to confess the real truth about our crap, not just say, oh, well, I'm a sinner. Because everyone's a sinner. We've all sinned, you know.
Sin all the time.
You know. But what have we actually done? Where have we fallen short? Let's face that and then let it go. Hear something from the scriptures, have it connected with us in a cool way that actually makes us remember it, not bores us out of our brains and we go, well, what did they talk about last week? Can't remember. You know, I made 3 points 3 times. Can you remember those 3 points that I made 3 times?
That really irritates me, how the minister says the same thing over and over, often almost...
Or different things, 3 different things.
Or the
which is
same
like, well, you
thing,
could have
3
just stopped
different
there,
ways.
and I might have remembered
Do you
that, but
think
now
I'm
you've gone and
dumb?
talked about this other thing, and then you've gone and talked about this other thing that you think is all related, and it sort of is, but now I can't remember any of it.
But
'cause
it's
you've
also- it's not-
blathered on for like 15 or 20 minutes, and
Yeah.
we all
And-
know from science that past 10 minutes, past 8 minutes,
And they're not
It's not
related.
there.
They're not related just because you say they are. Like,
well, they can even be thematically related.
Sure,
but I'm not getting any. If it's not making me live better,
Yeah.
and you telling me I should live better, and blasting me with all this information, even getting me hyped up,
yeah.
I'll
To what end?
forget it.
Yeah.
As soon as I walk out that door, I've gone, well, I felt better, and that was a really good sermon. I think that's the most insulting thing. It says I've really done a crap job when somebody says that was a really good sermon. Because it usually means that they've nodded and gone, yes,
that fits my box.
that fits my box.
Yeah.
I've listened to something.
Yeah.
That I
Can't
agree
remember
with.
it. I've agreed with that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas, and it may have been a good sermon, and I'm not actually doing that's a bit tongue in cheek. It's not the worst insult. I actually take that as praise, and for what it's offered, people are trying to be genuinely helpful.
Yeah.
But actually, when somebody says you've challenged me,
Yeah, that's much better.
or I have to think differently,
That's made me
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
or
Yeah.
I disagree with you,
Oh, yeah. That's good.
then maybe I've actually
Done something worthwhile.
That's transformative.
That's right.
'cause I've
Activated something.
shifted
Yeah.
something in their
100%.
thinking. And better still, if I've done an activity, that's why I do cool stuff.
I always go back to like when we had a friend of the show, James Aaron, came in. I think
Yes.
you must have been sick or away.
Yeah.
He's a good man.
Preached up a storm. He was unreal. And I realize that phrase kind of goes against the whole framework we've been trying to set up with this conversation. But he did a really great job. And then about 2/3 of the way through, he stopped and said, "Now, guys, I want you to stop and look around and think to yourself, who's here?" And they all sort of, that's a bit weird. And they kind of looked around, okay. And he said, "Okay, now look around again and think to yourself, who's not here?" And all of a sudden, old white person, old white person, old white person, slightly younger white person. And I remember sitting there going, this isn't part of the quote-unquote sermon, but this has activated something in the community of God, in the congregation, the people, the faith community that have come together to worship on a Sunday morning. All of a sudden, they're actually asking themselves a really deep and profoundly upsetting question.
Yeah. Who's not here?
And the hope is that then transforms how
Yep.
someone goes out and lives the rest of their life.
Yeah,
Whether
well,
in-
because we often forget that bit in the service. We've skipped it out. It's not part of the official thing where we actually have to think about, well, what are we going to do
What
with that
now?
knowledge?
Yeah, what now?
We'll leave that for homework. You can think about that when you go home, but of course by then I've forgotten it.
Yeah. You've gone
I
out to
actually
lunch.
need in the service a time to actually think, well then, what do I actually do with that?
Yeah.
I mean, the one of the best sermons Ness ever did, I think, was Transforming Worship, was where she stopped doing a sermon because she was talking about and I'm not saying that she does crap sermons. She does talk on too long, and I'm getting her over that. But she was talking about angels, and she asked us to talk in groups about how we'd experienced angels in our lives, and not the halo angels, because that was the whole point of the bit that she introduced. That angels aren't those people with white coats and a halo and wings, but people were talking about how they were helped by somebody when they'd migrated to Australia and they were feeling alone and somebody invited them in. Or one guy who'd served in the army had driven over an improvised explosive device and the truck behind him blew up with all his mates in it, but for some reason
They survived.
he didn't blow up. And then, well, what is that for? And we were having these deep conversations, and Ness said, well, let them go park whatever I was going to say the rest.
It was horrified.
And let's keep telling these stories because that was real.
It was real. It
And
was
people were
awesome.
actually sharing their faith.
And deeply moving, actually. And I had, the sad part about that was the week before I'd preached and set up this whole angel thing that I'd been doing because I did a series on it, and I thought, these people don't understand. They don't believe. They haven't had an interaction with an angel. This is going to be really hard work. And I had prayed before the service and on my way into church, oh, Lord, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. They don't get it. And then it just cracked open when I gave them space to actually have a conversation with one another about their own experiences.
And that's the irony.
They worship to each other.
You know,
They,
In the dojo.
didn't they? In the
'Cause
faith
Faith-nasium.
Nasium.
Faith-nasium, yeah. Trademark Jon Humphries. Registered.
I've got another one.
But-
The other way we could call it is a Faithosaurus Rex.
Sure.
I like that one.
That one, you can trademark
have that one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's yours. Yeah.
Don't know what that's got to do with developing your faith. Little hand.
Yeah.
And big height, that's
Faithosaurus
scary.
Rex.
I think the church is a Faithosaurus Rex. It just wrecks everything and gobbles up your time and energy with useless
Was it
stuff.
in
That
Meet the
actually
Robinsons?
doesn't
I
change,
don't think this was a very good idea, or whatever he says. Yeah.
But you know, we've set it up so that there's this person at the front who's supposed to have all the knowledge because they're the priestly figure who does all the words for us and does the godly stuff at the communion table and
hands,
stuff like that.
magic
It's
hands.
a temple. It's a temple. You've got a priest and you all sit in rows facing the altar, even if you call it a communion table. If it looks like a temple, you've got a priest and an altar. It's a temple. Where else in society, other than transport, do you sit in rows?
Theatre.
Theatre,
Cinema.
concerts. And there you're going to be entertained. And if you're going to be church to be entertained, you're going for the wrong reason. We're supposed to be there for community, and we don't talk to each other. Certainly not about faith. We do the religious stuff, and then you can go and have coffee and talk about what you did during the week and what you're
You
going
don't
to do
talk
on the
about
weekend.
and you don't talk about faith or what happened in the conversation in the chapel. You actually talk about who's driving the fastest car, or whatever's going on in the community at the time.
And a faith-nasium should be go, oh, I actually have a question, or I have this doubt.
I like faith
and I
nasium.
don't understand it, and other people tell their stories of faith, like we did, in the previous podcast that I turned up in, where we just said, well, where do you encounter God?
Yeah.
And amazing conversations when you actually ask somebody that question.
I'm going to change the sign at the front of church.
Okay.
This is not a church. This is a faith nasium. See you
Yeah.
at 10 a.m. Wear your spandex.
Or discipleship dojo. I like that too.
I like that. Yeah.
If you use Faithnasium, John's got to get like 10 cents every time anyone uses it.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, or just register that this is the first time. I've looked it up on the interweb. It's not a thing. It is a new word.
It's a new word.
It's
I
on
love
record
it.
now.
Yeah.
Just like templistic worship. We do
I like templistic. But how are we going to go with Faithosaurus Rex?
Well, I think
we'll come back to that.
I think it is a good term because, like all dinosaurs, it should be extinct. And if you try and do the whole Jurassic Park and resurrect it,
there you go.
we're just going to go to shite again. We're going to have more people being gobbled up. So we need to do church differently Not because we need to do church differently, but because we need to be church differently.
Yeah.
And we need to stop doing church and going to church.
In that old paradigm.
And we need to start being the church and talking about faith. Because the original church didn't meet in a glorious building. That only happened once the Romans took over and, according to legend, Constantine made Rome Christian as the official religion. And then we got priests back and buildings and temples because the Romans were used to worshipping in temples.
So the good news about tonight, guys, is that we get a sleep in on Sunday because we're not going to go to church anymore. We're going to do it differently.
Be the church. The best faith experience that I had, Ness, most transforming, Turramurra Uniting and Ravenswood both worked through Uniting World to sponsor a school in northeast India. And at Turramurra we had a time where we gathered, we sang 1 or 2 songs just to allow other people to come running late to join us. And then we got up and we left and we walked all the way from Turramurra Uniting, which is on the top of a hill, right down to the bottom to the Lane Cove River, walked along the Lane Cove River, and we had a picnic together to raise money as the church, as a sort of walkathon. And we had conversations along the way, and we built community because we were doing it with meaning and purpose. And we got out of the building. We literally got out of the space and did something for God that made a difference in the world.
How beautiful.
And built community by gathering and celebrating each other and having conversations
Down
along
by
the
the
way.
river.
That was also fitness.
Yeah.
And people could ask the questions. What did you do on the
Faithnasium.
weekend?
Faithnasium.
It was a Faithnasium experience because we got out of the building. Just like, you don't need a gymnasium, a gymnasium to get fit. You can go down to the park.
You
and
go kayaking.
Can go kayaking, you go bushwalking. You can just,
Do it
like
in your
me,
house.
grab your phone and get an app that says you're too fat and then try and get the level down by doing the torture exercise. And faith is meant to be uncomfortable. If you're not uncomfortable and you're not being stretched, then you're not being transformed because you're not actually growing fit. You're not. So there you go.
I had a conversation with someone who I won't name because this is a slight call out, but we were having a conversation about, how's your faith going? And they said, you know what, I'm really comfortable at the moment. And I'm really happy with that. And I bit my tongue a little bit and then afterwards sort of was like, in my own faith journey, as soon as I'm starting to feel comfortable, that's when I start to panic.
Shit happens.
Yeah, that's when I'm like, I'm on red alert.
I'm with you.
Something's about to happen.
I know.
And the church, the whatever it is, Faithosaurus Rex makes us think that we don't need to be scared because the dinosaur, no, mixing metaphors, it's not working. Anyway,
Crossed too many wires.
Anyway, just turning up to church and doing church, and if you feel comfortable and you feel like you've connected with God, not that I have any problem with people raising their hands, but when it becomes the group delirium,
Or the whole point of the whole thing.
Jesus never said, and I haven't found in the Bible, another thing I haven't found in the Bible, I want you to feel good.
Take up your cross and follow
Take up
me.
your cross.
And feel good.
Blessed are the poor in spirit.
Yeah.
Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who mourn.
Yeah.
It's never, I want you to feel the vibe.
But the joy to be found in that is life to the fullest.
Yeah.
And as I said, if it opens you up enough that God can get in there and wedge in the truth,
Yeah.
because your heart's open enough, well and good. If it's an authentic expression in the moment that you actually do feel a sense of honest praise to goodness, or it reminds you that you should be doing then, that's awesome. I'm not against that sort of stuff, but if it becomes the culture and the rule, it becomes a Faithosaurus Rex that just gobbles up everything, and you all have to pretend to be Tyrannosauruses or you're going to get eaten.
Yeah.
I'm Ness.
And you're there with your little hands praying to God.
Yeah. I was listening to something
running around just chomping stuff up.
Yeah,
consuming.
that's right.
It's a consumer faith.
Yeah,
not a real faith. It just becomes, well, I don't like this church because I don't feel spiritual enough, or it's not meeting my spiritual needs.
Don't like the music.
I don't like the music, or I only like hymns.
Yeah,
it's like.
It's not
crap.
That's not the point.
It's the people. And we've got great research. People, if you're into the church and you haven't read Growing Young, problematic title, by Fuller Institute, because we should be growing together, not just growing to be like young people. But the idea is we asked young people, what do they value in church? And it wasn't the music or style of worship. It was actually being valued as a person and given leadership opportunities, and us being a community together that actually grew them in faith. None of the rest, that's just icing on the cake. And if you've got a shitty cake, no matter how much icing you've got on it, it still tastes like shit.
Still a shitty cake.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I was listening to something the other day that was, and I didn't fully agree with the whole concept, but cultural clashes in church, whether it's racial or different styles of worship or music or all the different things, right? And this pastor was sort of talking about the only culture that we're about in church is kingdom culture, which I think is kind of that in itself, outside of some of the other stuff they were saying. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's kingdom culture. We're here to be the people of God together, not because we all like the same music.
And that's where another Johnism is, I call it kinddom culture. Because we are all humankind.
Yeah.
And God is at work in all of us. Or kingdom culture, which we are brothers and sisters together in Christ or in God. And that is our purpose, not... It's the community of the common good,
We have a culture of castle culture.
We do.
Don't we?
Yeah.
Really
and consumer culture. And we've just brought the consumer culture into this, I don't like that cafe because, their coffee is just not good enough. And I don't like that church because their theology isn't good enough. Or those people are going to hell because, they like LGBTQI people. Or those people are going to hell because they don't like LGBT. We judge each other and none of it is real. And Jesus goes, you're all a bunch of morons when it comes to the way, because you think you know what you're supposed to be doing, but none of you live it properly, because if you did, the world would be better. But it's not better and you're still making it a mess. So just shut up.
Yes.
Listen to what I'm saying. More listen to it. If you hear something, because he told a parable about that, about seeds. If you listen to this stuff and it doesn't change you, it's a waste. It could be thorns, birds, whatever, eating the seed. The only good seed is the one that grows and produces more seed. If you're not changing yourself, helping others be changed. And that's being honest. You go, Jonty, you should be able to say to me, I'm having a struggle with that. And I'll be able to say to Ness, I've got a porn issue or whatever it is. I just spent more money on stuff I don't need. And can you help me with it? Not judge me, but just go, okay, well, John, I'm going to ask you a question in a couple of weeks. How are you going with that? What are you doing with it? What are you doing to change? And then I'll help you. And then... that's confessing our sins to each other. Not pretending that we've confessed our sins, because we're all sinful and we just generically say, well, we're bad.
Jumping ahead to the behaviour or emulating the behaviour of who we think we should be to fit that idea of the
jumping
good Christian.
ahead to Easter, though. It's all about resurrection without going through the cross. And then the day where everyone's going, what the hell just happened? I've got no hope. The hopelessness of limbo that then gets transformed, and sometimes we just need to sit in that space. Sorry, people, but that awful space
for the Sunday to,
and then look to hope, to remind ourselves, and that's where church is at best, where it awakens hope, calls us to be different, and gets us doing it rather than just leaving us to it.
So that's the challenge.
So transforming worship people, that's, I think.
And
we need to transform worship. We need to be transformed by worship, and we need to just go and do it.
That's it.
Not in our temple church buildings, but actually being the church together and loving and caring people like the original disciples did. They sold all their stuff, shared everything together, gave money to the poor, gathered in the temple, ironically, and sang, songs. But that was just part of it because that was still part of their culture. And they were still Jews. They weren't Christians. Yeah. They weren't Jesus was Jewish. Yeah. He didn't come to start Christianity. He started to connect people with God and talked about the kingdom.
Yeah. He built a faithnasium.
Faithnasium. And that's what he did. He never actually told you the answer, which is what sermons do all the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
He just gave us these rotten, annoying
bloody
stories that you go, what the hell is that about? I think I know what it's about. And even when the disciples said, just tell us the answer, you go, well...
Yeah, and it's about trying to get us to ask better questions.
He said, I'm going to send you out 2 at a 2 and go and do some stuff.
Yeah.
And then... that will make a difference. And then come back and tell me all the good things that happen.
Yeah. So where can people find you if they want to connect with you online?
Well, at the end of September, I'm going to be at St Matthew's, Balcombe Hills, but you can connect me online via Facebook, Jon Humphries, with a sort of like a dovey flaming thing and a hockey stick that's reaching out to it. That's my icon. Or Changing Church on Facebook.
We'll stick all of that down in the show notes so people can find you, John.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for the convo. It was so deep. You were on fire.
I love that you answered the question well.
You did talk longer than 10 minutes, you boring bastard.
Yeah, and probably you haven't changed at home either. I haven't changed. No one's changed. We've been Faithosaurus Rexes. Faithosaurus wrecked.
Yeah, so... if you have thoughts, questions, comments, stories about anything that this might have rustled up for you, please feel free to get in touch. You can find us on socials or you can email us at filthyhopepod@gmail.com. That's about all from us. We'll wrap there. So
love God, make good choices.
Words to live by.
What's the thing you say? Don't be a dick.
Oh, I don't say it anymore. I used to say take Jesus seriously and don't be a dick.
Yeah. You
Jesus
need to say that.
Just be nice.
Yeah.
Edgy nice.
That's right. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
This is a prayer for the people.